Welcome back to the Hybrid Athlete Dad Podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to be going over finding motivation when you're running on empty as a parent. Now, before I dive into the episode, if you've been a listener or if you've just been tuning to the show for the very first time, before I like to dive into the topic of today's podcast, I like to just give some updates on what's going on in my life when it comes to training, when it comes to cardio, when it comes to strength training, and just maybe personal development, that sort of thing. Whatever it may be, I just like to share it before I dive into the episode. This week, feeling much better than last week. I believe last week when I was recording my episode, I still had a pretty bad cough. I developed a pretty bad cold, sinus infection. Pretty sure I picked it up from my daughter as she had something similar that she picked it up at daycare. But all systems go this week. Feeling good. Was definitely a little bit of a letdown where running the marathon and then took it easy and then was starting to get back into it and then got sick. And then now I feel as though this is like the full week I can get after it. And I started to feel that towards the end of last week, as well as able to go on a 10-mile run, which was the longest run I had done since my marathon about 2 or 3 weeks prior than that. So definitely feeling a lot better. Still having some knee pain on my end, trying to work through it. Probably want to go see an orthopedic. I talked about this on the last podcast. Just trying to work through it, trying to see, okay, is it maybe inflammation? Is it a stress fracture? I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. My hope is that just some sort of inflammation, and I probably just need to be putting more ice on it. But it's enough where I can run, and now when I'm done running, I don't really have any problems walking up and down the stairs. I will say what I do notice, the impact that it has on me is the explosiveness. And not so much running, because when I run, it's more of a consistent pace. It's more when I'm in the gym, when I'm doing shoulder presses, when I'm doing deadlifts, when I'm doing bench press, trying to push up and push off using my legs. It just, the explosiveness just isn't there as much. But I will say I did leg day last week for the first time. Very hard to do squats and lunges and different things like that. It was very painful. Did it today, and it was much easier to do. Felt as though my knees were feeling a lot better. I'm talking like before I could go do lunges, I could put my knee, pretty close to the ground, hovering over it. There, last week it was like I couldn't even get my knee like parallel. It was so painful for my leg. So just dealing with that, but it feels as though I'm getting a little bit better. I'm coming back stronger. And it's interesting because when I ran the half marathon, it was no big deal. I ran the half marathon and, went back 2 days later and was normal. I had that same sort of thinking when I was running this marathon, and it probably couldn't be further from the truth. Looking back now, I probably give myself another week of tapering, where I gave myself 1 week of, or I say tapering, but after the marathon, I'm just getting back into it, not pushing myself too hard in the gym, only running 2 or 3 miles at a clip. Then the following week, I'm like, okay, let's get back up to 30 miles. Let's hit the gym hard again. And doing that, I don't know if they just overtaxed my body, but working through that. But with that said, have 15K coming up this weekend that I'm excited to run. So a little over 9 miles, and then another half marathon 2 weeks after that. And that'll pretty much complete my racing for the season. The goal with those 2 events was to see how fast I could do them. But now I feel as though I lost some of the explosiveness with just the knee soreness and the knee pain. So we'll see how I do. But it's been phenomenal wearing the Garmin watch. I find it's much easier to track my workouts, to see how fast I'm going. I just didn't have that with a Fitbit. And I feel as though the goal when I ran the half marathon was about 9:30. What I want to try to do is run the 15K at 9 minutes per mile pace. And then when I run the half marathon, do the same thing, 9 miles per minute. That would be pretty fast. 9 minutes per mile, and see how I stand with that. Was going to try to get it into the 8s, because when I first started running my first 5K back in May, I ran that first 5K in like 8:30, and then honestly progressively got slower. I think I was just running so much more that when I used to run like 2 or 3 miles at a clip, I could almost like sprint them. But then now I'm running like 10 miles, and I'm still trying to figure out my way. Like, okay, how fast can I go without burning myself out? Because I don't want to hit a wall. Like if I'm doing a 9-mile run, where right now I feel pretty confident that I can go out and do that, but do I come out so fast like I do a 5K and then I hit the wall like mile 4 or 5, and then I'm doing 12-minute mile pace, almost like a slow jog to the finish line. So still trying to work that out, still trying to figure that out on my end. But I found that just having the running routine down has been very beneficial for me. And the way that it looks like for me is I'll run Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. And what I think I'm going to be doing in the future is, now that I don't have any marathons planned, I don't have any half marathons planned after the one that I do. So what I think I'm going to do is, because I don't want to just keep losing weight, I just burned so many calories, and it's hard to consistently get in enough calories where I don't want to be losing weight, but I want to be losing muscle. So it's always this ebb and flow going back and forth between each other. So I think I'm going to cap it off at my longest run be about 6 miles. And then if I decide I want to do a half marathon, then I'll start going out and doing it again. So I ran 10 miles last week. For my long run, I'll be running this 15K, which will be like 9.3 miles. Then I'll run 12 miles next week, and then I'll run a half marathon, and that'll really be the longest that I'll be running, and then I'll tone it back down to 5 or 6 miles every time that I go out. So that way I'm running about 25 miles a week is probably where I prefer to be. Don't want to get up to 30 or 40 miles again. Just not when I have a race. I find it can be taxing. I spend a lot of time doing that, and if I don't have a race coming up, I don't really see that it's necessary. So just making some adjustments to my routine there. It has been very nice though, dealing with the weather that we've had. It's been interesting. So to give you an example, on Monday, I had to wear a quarter zip, and I had to wear these cold gear Under Armour leggings when I ran, and gloves and a hat. Just pretty cold out there. I think it was like 31, 32 degrees. Fast forward to Tuesday, I'm running, and it was like 72 degrees, and I'm like almost overheating because I'm not used to the heat. And it's just been very big differences where I am in upstate New York, where sometimes it's very cold. Sometimes, I wouldn't say 32 is very cold, but let's say it's cold outside, or it takes a mile and a half for you to get warmed up, versus literally the next day running the same time, where now it's 72, 73, 74 degrees. So have these ebbs and flows. So it's been interesting. I think it's been helpful for me in the sense, when I ran the marathon, every time I ran was throughout the summer, the fall. I was always shorts, t-shirt, nothing else. And then the day of the marathon, it's 40 degrees and rain. I'm like, okay, I have to wear a quarter zip. And now I'm wearing gloves. Do I wear the leggings? Do I not wear the leggings? I don't want to overheat. I've never run 26 miles and anything, or I never ran further than 20 miles in the shorts and t-shirt. So we're trying to figure out that whole situation out. So I think it's been good to figure out, okay, like, how many layers do I actually need versus what can I hold off on? That way I don't overheat on my runs. So it's been good in a sense, been able to test out what I've been wearing for these runs. And last thing I wanted to mention is, if you're looking for a good book recommendation, I just finished To the Gorge by Emily Hallman. That book it was very phenomenal. It was kind of a hard read at times, and just in the sense of what she was going through, what she was dealing with. Not to give too much away, but I'm sure you could read it on the cover of the book. In essence, her mom passes away from cancer, and she wants to take this big undertaking and to really push herself, and she decides, I'm going to run from the border of California to the border of Washington, which is 460 miles, and she's going to do it over the course of about 7 or 8 days. And she just takes you through all the miles. She takes you through her journey, what she was dealing with her personal life, with what was going on with her mom, what she was going through on the trails. Like I mentioned, a tough read at times, just in the sense it's like, it just makes you think about, my parents that are both still alive, and the challenges that I want to take, and what would happen if they're gone. But it's a very good book, and I'll just leave it that. Again, I don't want to give too much away from it, so I highly recommend checking that book out if you haven't read it. Now, to dive into the episode of finding motivation when you're running on empty as a parent, I thought it was just a good topic to bring up. So for myself, having my daughter, I don't have multiple kids, but there's times where I'm running on empty. Maybe there's a lot going on at my job. Maybe there's something going on in my personal life. But for this specific episode, what I'll be talking about is when you're tired, when you don't feel like working out, when you don't feel like pushing yourself. And this is definitely how I feel at times. I'm going to give you an example. Our daughter, she had a little bit of a sleep regression over the last week or so, where she was waking up in the middle of the night for about 3 hours, whether it was 1 to 4, whether it was 3 to 6. Sometimes she'd be on the baby monitor, and she wouldn't be awake, but she would be, it was almost like these muffled cries, where she had a hard time getting herself back to sleep, where I wouldn't want to get up and get her and, and then wake her up, and so she's fully awake. So you'd hear on the baby monitor. And obviously, I don't want to turn the baby monitor off. Just want to make sure everything is okay with her. So as a result, I'm going from sleeping, 6, 7, 8 hours straight, and I'm sleeping like 2 hours and then picking up another 2 or 3 hours. Maybe it's 4 hours out of clip. So I'm pretty exhausted doing this, but I know that I still want to work out, and it's not an excuse to use. And I find that this happens with our daughter occasionally. She had been good for quite a while, especially as she's gotten older. Early on, we had problems more when she first started daycare. She was sick quite a bit, and she started in December, which probably isn't a good time of the year to start. She was sick. She was sick quite a bit. She had teeth coming in. She was growing so much. Where we dealt with this a lot early on, but I can relate to just being tired. Okay, like I got to get to the gym today. Like I just want to sleep in, or this is the last thing that I want to do. And for me, it was realizing, okay, this isn't going to last forever. And I think back to when our daughter was first born, where the thinking was, okay, like, is this ever going to end? And what I mean by that is, as a newborn, our daughter was getting up every 2 to 3 hours, and you're up every 2 to 3 hours the entire day. It's not like, okay, bedtime's at 8, I'm going to get up at 6. It's like, no, I'm going to be up at 10, I'm going to be up at 12, I'm going to be up at 2, I'm going to be up at 4. And my wife and I, we would rotate shifts and thinking like, oh my God, like I am just absolutely exhausted. I'm dragging myself in the gym, like I'm not performing. And what I realized over time is that it's not going to last forever. How busy I am at my job, how busy I am in the day, I am in the week. Our daughter, maybe she's not sleeping because she has a cold, or maybe she's just going through a sleep regression because she's about to be 18 months in the next month. But knowing that, okay, this is not going to be forever. So if I just continue to push myself through this moment, I know that eventually it's going to get better, that I'm not going to be as busy, that my daughter's going to be sleeping through the night, that while I feel like I'm running on empty right now, I know that this moment isn't going to last forever. I think to myself, okay, I want to be the inspiration to my daughter. Do I want to tell her that just because I'm a little tired or I didn't feel like working out, that I just didn't work out? I say, hey, yeah, I only got 3 hours of sleep last night. I said, I'm going to punt on the gym today. And then all of a sudden it starts to become a little bit easier to punt on the gym, where you can get yourself out of bed. And I find that I'll be absolutely exhausted getting out of bed. I'll get up, I'll brush my teeth, I'll put on my clothes, I'll get ready to go to the gym, I'll have my yogurt. And even then, I still might be exhausted. I find, okay, I start the workout, I start to get into the workout, I get the blood flowing, I get the blood pumping. I find that I feel so much better because of it. Now, there's a difference here between when you're running on empty and just being tired and exhausted and working out and being sick. Because there's the differences. I found that when I am sick and I push myself, I do way more damage to my body. And being sick is like when I had this cold, I took a day off from the gym. I went one day, maybe I shouldn't, just feeling super fatigued, low energy, just not mentally there, versus feeling I'm running on empty. And I hope you can understand where I'm going with this and the feeling that you can get when I'm sick, or no, I'm just exhausted and I'm looking to make every excuse I can in the book to not go to the gym. But I tell you what, there's been times where I'm just beat, I'm worn down, and I just force myself to get out of bed. I force myself to go through the routine, to go to the gym, to do that run in the morning, and I just feel so much better about it. And I think back to my daughter, and whether you have kids, but just being that inspiration to them. And again, saying like, okay, yeah, I was super tired, but I got up and I pushed through it. And then it just makes it that much easier the next time around when you're running on empty, when you're feeling exhausted, that you're thinking, okay, I can't do this. But then you think back to your time, to the other time where you did go through and you pushed through it. So that's what I want you to remember when you're looking for that motivation, to know this isn't going to last forever. It's only going to be temporarily, where in the moment it feels like, oh gosh, like this is never going to end. My daughter is never going to sleep through the night again. I'm never going to have free time to myself. But like that's not the case. We over exaggerate our thinking and knowing that this isn't going to be forever. There'll be a time and point where it's going to change. So just try your best to deal with it with the here and now. Besides those 2 points, I would say that changing up the routine has also worked for me. Specifically in the gym, it's changing up the workouts I'm doing. Maybe it's changing up the days that I'm doing those workouts. If I'm doing chest and biceps on Friday, I'm doing shoulders, back, and triceps on Monday, then maybe I flip-flop those days. Maybe I switch up the workouts. Because I find that when I am stale in my workouts, I'm stale in what I'm doing, plus I'm exhausted. It's like, I really don't want to do this. I've been doing this for so long. This has no interest to me. I don't want to go and bench press for the 12th straight week doing 4 sets of 10. Like, that's not interest to me. Maybe I switch it up. Maybe I do flat dumbbell bench press and something along those lines. And just switching it up, I find that really works for me. Maybe it's doing a new workout program that you haven't done before. Maybe it's just switching up. Maybe instead of using the incline dumbbell press or the incline bench press, you're doing the incline Smith machine. So you're just switching it up where, yeah, you're doing the same exercise, but it's going to be a little bit different. Maybe instead of doing dumbbell curls, you do barbell curls. Just different things like that. Instead of doing cable flies, you do dumbbell flies. Just different things like that where you can switch it up. I find was just so beneficial for me when I'm exhausted. Like, okay, like this is something new. This is something exciting. Now I can get behind it. So I highly recommend that. And then at the end of the day, just make sure that you're taking time for yourself, that you have that self-care for yourself. And I know I mentioned not making excuses. But times you might just need to take that day off. Maybe instead of pushing yourself so hard at the gym that, like when I was sick, I would do 9 different exercises at the gym. I just cut it back to 4. I'm just beat down. I'm worn. I'm not feeling good. I'm trying to get back into it. I have this cold, but I think that I can be working out. But like deadlifting, no way am I going to be able to deadlift with a chest cold and a sinus infection. Yeah, if I really wanted to push myself, I probably could have done it, but I don't. Or doing the shoulder press. That's just so much going on. I'd rather just do lateral raises and front lateral raises and call it a day, where I'm just modifying it a little bit because I'm just not feeling 100%, but I'm still able to get that workout in. Maybe it's buying a nice dinner for yourself. Maybe it's buying something small for yourself or big, depending on what your budget looks like. For me, it might be buying a new pair of running shoes just to get that motivation to get back into it. So you just have to figure out what works for you and what you think will allow you to push you forward as you're finding motivation when you're running on empty as a parent. But that's really everything on today's episode. I mean, just knowing that, okay, like this is hard, but you're not the only person that's going through it. There's tons of parents out there that are running on empty, that are still showing up to the gym and still pushing themselves each and every single day.